George Burns once said, "The secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and to have the two as close together as possible." That I can do. Jerry Seinfeld once reported that according to studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two. This means to the average person, Jerry said, that if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. I talk a lot. All my friends could tell you that. I don't know why. Maybe because being the fourth child, I had to work real hard to get a word in at the dinner table. Whatever the reason, I console myself that I found at least the right vocation as a minister. In an essay titled "Winter Mind," Philip Simmons writes of silence. "I have on my office door," he says, "these words from an accomplished Indian yogi. Before speaking, consider whether it is an improvement upon silence." The man who wrote them once went 19 years without speaking, Simmons said, setting a standard I can't hope to meet. Yet his words remind me that when we do speak, we must speak truth. Even more important, he said, because truth so often eludes us, we must speak in kindness. In fact, we might amend the yogi's saying to read, "Before speaking, consider whether you speak out of love." If we could speak out of love, Simmons said, we could change everything. And maybe I could end this essay right here. And maybe I could end this sermon right here. Philip's words remind me of the poignant irony that I'm about to stand before you here for 10 or 15 minutes and talk on the subject of holding one's tongue. But can you imagine if we actually practiced Simmons' admonition? If we paused to meditate on love before we spoke? Simmons' UU World essay paints a beautiful image of the role of silence in our lives. Did you know the word infant means without speech? Infant, without speech. He reminds us that as infants we are allowed a few months of wordless union with our mothers. Our first cries express our desire to return to our mother's breast. And as soon as we are weaned from that breast, we start talking. The fall into language, Simmons calls our expulsion from the garden, our fall into that separateness by which we find a self. And then we talk our lives away, unaware that no amount of speech will get us back to where we really want to be. Only death shuts us up. From silence we come, and unto silence we will return. In the meantime, we talk. A New Yorker magazine cartoon displayed a gravestone that read, "Born 1932, yada, 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 died 1995. But Simmons says we don't have to die to experience silence. We all have memories of important silences in our lives. He recalled as a boy lying in a hayloft, watching dust dance on a shaft of sunlight. Have you been there? Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah. I see it right now. And I recall he says also, looking down the front of Arlene Colebrook's dress in the snack booth at the Old Home Week penny sale. Both events, he says, were occasions of wordless awe. At such moments, we don't choose silence, but fall silent. Silence, like love, isn't something we reason our way into. And once we are in it, we recognize that it has been there all along. Philip continues his story. The forest where we live is mixed hardwoods and conifers, maple, oak, beech, and birch, white pine, spruce, and hemlock. I can hear the sound the forest makes when gently dithered by winter air. Leaves are down, of course, so it's the pines that matter most. They stand tallest and catch the wind. Theirs is a finely sifted sound, a soft hiss through unnumbered needles. Stand by one as it takes the air, and you will know how God breathes. Hear the sound coming at you over the miles, and you hear something like the breath of being itself, the very sigh of our becoming and passing away. This silent sound that Philip writes about is rare. It is always there, of course, but we must pay a price to hear it. It will cost us something. Some time ago, I read one of those seemingly useless but interesting facts we sometimes come across. I read that there is one part of our bodies that never stops moving. At the time I read this riddle, I couldn't guess which body part was being referenced. But I'll bet some of you, under the circumstances, have already figured it out. What?
The tongue.
The tongue. And if you're like me, you're going to the nearest mirror after hearing this to check it out. And when you do, you'll find that sure enough, that little devil is always wagging in there, twitching, curling, performing its many functions. Just you try to hold it still. I recall a passage from the Bible, the book of James in the New Testament. It goes like this: the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. Behold how great a matter a little fire kindles. But there's more. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. It defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature. For every kind of beast and bird and serpent and things in the sea has been tamed by humankind. But the tongue can no one tame. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless God, and with it we curse people who are made after the similitude of God. I love that turn of phrase. Not the image of God, but the similitude. We don't look like God. We are a simile for God, a counterpart, a double. As the song said, God has no hands but our hands. And yet, says James, out of the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. Imagine a fountain that sprays out sweet water and bitter water. I know I have a lot to learn about holding my tongue. There are lots of proverbs in the Old Testament about the tongue and speaking also. A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. How about this? A wholesome tongue is a tree of life. I'm not sure what that means, but It sounds like a good thing. Or death and life are in the power of the tongue. The Buddha, too, was hot on speech. The Eightfold Path of Buddhism includes right speech as well as right view and right action. Verse 23 of the Tao Te Ching says, "To be of few words is natural." In Islam, silence is one of the first stages of worship. Vows of silence are common in ascetic forms of Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. And here are some other thoughts on silence I have heard. Better to keep your mouth shut and have people think you are ignorant than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Light travels faster than sound. Maybe that's why some people seem bright until you hear them speak. I remember this adage that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Thus, we are designed to listen twice as much as we talk. Karen Armstrong wrote about her work as an historian of religion. Quote, "Some of the religious practices of the past may sound bizarre to modern ears. I thought right away of the whirling dervishes or the Native American sun dance. But the historian, she says, has to empty herself of her own presuppositions and enter the viewpoint of a world that is very different from her own. I think the same is true of anyone who wants to listen and open up to others. We are constantly bombarded by a world that judges, measures, critiques, pigeonholes everything and everyone. Too often I let this ugly habit seep into my attitudes. Then I have to stop and breathe and listen. We cannot observe our own inner biases as long as we are actively promoting them. I opened my sermon with Philip Simmons' essay, Winter Mind. He closes with this lesson life is teaching him on silence. These days, my own relationship with silence grows more intimate. With Lou Gehrig's disease, I face the loss of my ability to speak. Already my speech slows, my tongue grows unwieldy. Before hefting another syllable across my palate, I consider more seriously whether it will be an improvement upon silence. Because I'm too dense to get the message any other way, and despite my years of meditation, the fates are instructing me quite literally in the art of sitting down and shutting